Good.
Aishi, once
Good
we are
morning,
live, please let
Samyukta.
me know.
Are you there?
Sir?
Samyukta is on video, or she's not on
All
Yeah,
video?
right. Yeah.
I'm here, sir. I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
We're live, everyone. So, I'm Vishnu Bharadwaj. I'm chair of Council of Reproductive and Sexual Health and Gender Education. We call it Corage, and I'm also co-founder of Bleed with Pride. And today we bring to you Transcend, which is episode 2 of L.E.N.S Looking Above Stigmas series. And so we bring this to you on behalf of SIMSA. SIMSA stands for South Indian Medical Student Association. It was founded on 10th June 2020 and by a passionate group of medical students for a greater representation of students of South India among international platforms. And the organization is recognized by Government of India, and we are one of the fastest growing medical student organization with over 1,000 members. And Bleed with Pride is a non-governmental organization working in association with Corage of SIMSA, aligning itself to similar goals, and it's maintaining uh, its main goal is to create awareness about menstruation, sexual lifestyle, and reproductive health and hygiene. It began as a small initiative by medical students to promote rural menstrual hygiene in Nepal and began working on smaller groups. Soon it spread to India as well, during which we reached out more than 10,000 women among rural Nepal, and we were the first people to bring in automated sanitary pad dispensers into Nepal. And post that, we have started our work in India and began working in started our work in India, and we have adopted new problem-solving techniques and have positioned ourselves as a training for trainer organization. We work with in collaboration with a lot of NGOs and train their teams to better address menstrual and reproductive health with emphasis on communication techniques and awareness about basic hygiene. So on behalf of SIMSA and Bleed with Pride, we bring you Transcend, which is episode 2 of L.E.N.S. L.E.N.S stands for Looking Above Stigmas, and we started this initiative as a part of coping mechanism with the pandemic, where we can where we wanted to create talks upon usually hushed topics, that too right from the comfort of your home. Our previous episode was a grand success. We've gotten a district judge to speak about child sexual abuse. It had more than 1,000 views on YouTube and Zoom. And by saying this, let me address our esteemed panelists. Uh, retired General Major, Retired Major General N.R.K. Babu. Sir, we are so glad to have you. And Major General N.R.K. Babu have an extensive experience in military engineering and served as a chief engineer. Now manages 2 schools which plan to embrace gender non-conforming children as a part of their inclusive program. It's first of its kind initiative in the country. And Ms. Sheela Jose, ma'am, welcome to our session. So Ms. Sheela Jose, ma'am holds a master's in psychology and specialized in autism spectrum disorder. She has conducted various workshops and um, research programs. She's a principal of Manasamitra Special School and a director and psychologist of Manasamitra Diagnostic Assessment and Research Center. Ms. Samyukta Vijayan, ma'am, we are very glad to have you with us today. So, Samyukta Vijayan, ma'am, she's the first transgender employee of Swiggy, taking up a position of principal programmer. She works with NGOs and placement organizations to help transgender women secure mainstream jobs at corporations. So, by introducing, I thank everyone for this opportunity to introduce such an esteemed panel. And I hand over the session for today's moderators. That will be Chetna and Janani. And you can reach out to Chetna on SIMSA ID. You could see it with the SIMSA logo. And you will have 3 other organizers on Zoom. That will be Sudhiti, Keshav, and Amrita. So I hand over the floor to you guys. Wish you all the very best, and I'm looking forward for today's session. Thank you, everyone. Guys, is the connection clear, everyone?
Yeah, it's clear.
Hey, we're not able to hear you guys.
Yeah,
Janani?
Janani, I think you're muted. Can you?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, who is? Nobody's talking now. We're not able to hear anybody.
Yes, I
Maybe
guess
we
there is
should
some.
get started.
Yeah, is there, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Janani is not on mute. I think she's lost. Janani, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I will start presenting the screen for sir to start the session.
Yeah, you're the co-host, so you can go ahead and do that. I've made you the co-host.
Yes, sir. Is my screen visible now?
Yeah, it's visible, Janani. Shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Visible, visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. I'm Major General Babu, already introduced to you. And at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers profusely for taking up this subject, which is very least addressed anywhere. I must thank Janani, Chetna, Vishnu, and their entire team for putting in such great effort for getting all of us together here today. Uh, I actually run a school in Tiruchinappalli in Tamil Nadu. It's a truly inclusive school, and we have about 400 and odd children, 450 children, out of which 300 children are children studying in CBSE. So we have a CBSE syllabus in which these children study. Then I have about 100 differently abled children from ADHD to MR to CP, all kinds of disabilities. And they study along with these children, but in another affiliation called as an open basic education, where they are only tested for how much they understand. Thirdly, I also have about 20 school dropouts, people who have been thrown out of school for not studying well because they find mathematics or science or any particular subject too difficult. And these children are also part of our education system, and they come under the National Institute of Open Studies. And while I was actually looking more into this truly inclusiveness, being a only school of this kind, I came across two more categories of people. One are the elders who have not been able to complete their education, for which NIOS is a apt affiliation. But however, this is where I came upon there is a whole lot of children who actually drop out of schools because they are gender non-conforming. It took me almost 2.5 years of research into this field to understand what they are, where they are, and what we can do for them. Statistically going, I'll just give a little backdrop. Tiruchi, Tanjavur, and Madurai alone has about 40 to 50,000 transgenders. If you take whole of Tamil Nadu, it's somewhere to the tune of about 2 to 3 lakhs. And you can imagine what is the figure in 29 states. And these are transgenders in the streets outside the society as a community. And you can imagine how many more are hidden away, not really known to us. So when I started studying about them, I realized the problem area with these children is between the age group of 13 to 18, that is the adolescent period. Mostly this is the time when they go through a certain turmoil for which they are either supported by their parents or disowned by their parents. So we, as I kept going more and more into details and getting in contact with a number of NGOs and also the community outside and people who deal with reassigned surgery, I came to know that more than 85% are truly ignorant of this entire lot of children, and they're not even talked about. At least we do talk about transgenders and them as a community, but we just do not even look at these children that they exist, and that's the sad part. And this exercise today, I'm thankful to the uh, organizers for putting this together so that we spread this awareness of who these children are, what these children are, and what they are capable of. In today, about 15 to 20 minutes, I shall just give a gist of whatever I have understood about them. I started a project called Siva-Shakthi to give a ray of hope for such children. And it took me almost 6 months to convince my board that we must play a lead role in accepting these children as part of the existing school, and they must study in an inclusive manner where we prepare our existing children, the teaching staff, the non-teaching staff, so that they accept these children for whatever they are. So that was the exercise I underwent for almost 6 months. Then I went about constructing a special hostel for these children so that in case the parents are not willing to keep the children at home or they are out of station, they can be put here in the hostel and they can get integrated with us in our school. As we keep reading more and more about these children, we must get rid of this loosely used words like third gender, binary, and such things. And today, the latest thing is that they're all gender variant children, and they all have a place on this in this world, and they all have a place in our society. And these gender variants is a part of humanity. And if we understand that very clearly, I think we will not go wrong. Next. Next slide, Janani. When a child is born, we all go to temples, we all pray to God, saying that we should have a male or a female child. There is very little thought given between the spectrum of a male and a female. And actually, there is a whole lot of spectrum of several identities with which the children are born. Actually, when you go deeply, children are born as such. We have the entire LGBTQ community lying between the male and the female spectrum. The intersex children are those children who are born with both the genitals, and they are also part of the gender variance. So when we understand this, we will realize that this is not a disease, this is not a disorder. It is basically they are born as such when they are formed in the womb of a mother. And once they come out, these children, as they grow, they start expressing themselves, and they express what is inside them. They express what they see around them. And this is termed in various theories by various researchers. So this expression actually lets us know where exactly these children are and what is their identity towards which they are working. Be it a male, be it a female, be it a lesbian, be it a gay, be it a intersex child, or be it a bisexual or a transgender. But again, as the children traverse through age, their understanding of that identity keeps on varying till they finally, after they are 18 or 19, they really understand who they really are. Until that time, they are actually learning through personally experiencing what they go through from inside. As far as the various
Sir, 1 minute, sir. Sorry to interrupt, but I think the slides aren't moving. 1 minute, sir. I'll just reach.
Yeah, slides are not moving over.
Yes, sir.
try the minimized version if you can. Yeah. So
Now,
this is the spectrum I talked about. Yeah, now it's the next slide. Go on to the next slide. Yeah. So this is the entire spectrum from the female to the male, lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual. But intersex children, they are born as such with both the genitals. So you can actually identify at the time of birth itself. The rest of them are what they are learning and growing and feeling as they move along in life. Next. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, those children who are born in one particular identity and who do not identify themselves in that identity are gender non-conforming. In loosely put terms, it's a boy trapped in a girl's body or a girl trapped in a boy's body. And whatever they are experiencing when this happens is generally called as a gender dysphoria. In the earlier days, it used to be called as a gender identity disorder. But in today's world, in today's medical terms, this disorder is not a right word to use because it is no longer a disorder. They're just born that way, and then they grow up like anybody else, and then they identify themselves at the end of their end of the journey as to who they are. And but this journey is a very hard journey for them. Next. Next slide. Yeah. Now, while they're expressing from the age of from the time they are born, actually some children even recognize that they have these kind of different feelings right from the age of 3, 4, 5 itself. And they may like to wear girls' dress, they may like to play with girls' toys, they may like to they may like makeups, and they express themselves in various ways. Sometimes when they're too young, even the parents enjoy a male child doing all these things. But as they grow, then what happens is each one of them are being boxed in as per the social norms. There are various theories which go around. One is the psychoanalytic theory, where the children start copying their parents' behavior. Either like a male child will follow a father, a female child will follow a mother. So they are basically copying the parents and their behavioral patterns. The social learning theory is purely based on rewards and punishments. These are concerning the environment that they live in. Basically, the social environment, the schools, the family, the siblings, all of them actually keep on pushing these children into this predefined boxes of a male and a female behavior pattern. The cognitive development theory is purely for those children who understand themselves and take a hard decision to follow what they feel. Meaning, between the age group of 13 to 18, these children either listen to the parents or they come out openly and express themselves, and they say that we are this and this is what we would like to be. And then they become something like they revolt against the existing so-called pattern inside the family. So this cognitive theory is very much prevalent, and this is the period which is the most difficult period for these children, because when you take this journey, the first bullying starts in school. When the children get to the age of puberty, around 13 to 14 to 15, that is the time when their behavioral patterns changes drastically. And when this happens, the first people to recognize are the class friends of theirs for the last about 10 years who recognize the change in behavior. And they start teasing and they start bullying, and it becomes real hell for the child and in the school itself. And when teachers don't understand, the management doesn't understand, then life in the school becomes so difficult. The child does not want to go to that school. The child does not want to sit in that class, and child academic performance keeps dropping. And this happens, the parents' first behavior is that they are in a state of denial. This cannot be happening to my child, something is wrong with the school. But over a period of time, maybe they change their school, maybe they don't, but over a period of time, they too understand that there is something going on with my child. And when this happens, the first thing they think is, this is a curable problem. They need to take the child to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and this will be okay. Or over a period of time, this will be fine. Or they go into horoscopes and Nadi Josium and this and that, saying, okay, over this 7.5 period, the child will change. No, the child does not change like that. The child is basically born like that. And all we need to do is we need to change to accept the child as the child expresses itself. The last is the gender schema theory, which is actually a hybrid between the social learning and the cognitive theory. Next. Next slide. Yeah. So basically, children are born with a gender. They grow expressing their gender inclination till they are sure of their final identity / sexuality. Next slide. Yeah. Coming to the parents. Basically, when it comes, the problem rests finally with the parents. When it comes to the parents, they become the key. In my entire survey, almost 85% of these children get disowned by the parents. They are the ones who land up in the streets and ultimately end up being the workhorses for the community outside the society. The 15% parents who accept the children for what they are actually called as transformers. They accept the child, they nurture the child, they allow the child to blossom, and they are all generally very successful. And I have never seen a child who have been nurtured by the parent not being successful. Actually, to be very honest, when I see all these kind of children in my school, these are the children who are the worst off. Because when I come to differently able children or a child not studying well, the parents are willing to go to any extent to support them. But with these children who are highly capable and they can be great performers, they get disowned at an age which they don't even understand what is going on. Suddenly, everybody becomes their enemy. The second type of parent are the transphobias. The transphobia parents are basically those parents who do not accept. Till the last, they do not accept and they disown the child. They said, if this child is at home, the other siblings are going to get spoiled. So he's not going to listen to us. He's not going to be in his original gender in which he is born. So I think it's best to disown him and let him go the way he wants to go. So these are the kind of parents who are about 85%. And our program is primarily aimed at reaching out to these parents. The last one are the transporters. These type of parents are basically, they agree to support the child, but heart of heart still do not accept what's going on with their child. So they are the ones on the wall, Humpty Dumpty on the wall type. So they are willing to support the child, but not willing to go all the way to give the psychological and strength to the children as they are growing. Next. Next. Yeah. 1 in every 2,000 children experience gender non-conforming. I hope we all know that. It's a very high percentage actually. The higher level of distress is in boys than in girls. The gender non-conforming impacts men more negatively than women because women still get away being tomboyish. They can dress up like men, they can behave like men, but nobody generally teases them so much as when a boy behaves like a girl, both in school and in colleges. Expression of oneself is a tough journey with confusion and understandings, uncertainties. But however, with time, they constantly keep redefining themselves till they are sure of their identity. Because I can, when I interviewed a number of these people who are today doing well in life, one of the transgender lady whom I met is a doctor again, working in Pondicherry. She explicitly said, look, when I was so fortunate that my parents understood me. They were willing to support me. They were transformers. And when they actually supported me throughout my schooling, I had no problems. But when I went into college, she went into a medical college and she's a doctor today. She's a specialist. And throughout my medical college, I was a gay because my understanding at that particular point of time is that I am a gay. So she got into a gay lifestyle. But however, after passing out as a doctor and joining the medical college for practice. She today is a transgender. She is married, living happily, and a specialist in her field. So there's many such cases. Why I am narrating this particular incident is, even with such highly educated people, they are not very sure of their identity till they finally fully understand themselves and are comfortable with what they identify themselves. Next slide. Yeah. So with this as a backdrop, I started a movement called as Siva-Shakthi for my school, and we went ahead doing a lot of these talk shows. I addressed almost 500 principals in Trichy district itself, so that this school being the critical point. And I was willing to take this message to every parent, if in case they are wanting to know. But the biggest problem is, at this age bracket of 13 to 18, most parents are in denial. Most parents do not want to.
So video is stuck. Video and audio both are stuck.
I can hear you guys okay.
Did sir get disconnected?
Yes, yes. So I guess he'll join back in a minute.
Yeah, okay. We'll wait for him. He'll be back.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible now. I think there was some connection issue. Now we can hear you.
Yeah. So basically, I have now created a hostel with which has a capacity for 36 children to start with. I am willing to accept these children as part of my program. And the first 10 children who walk into my school, I'm going to give them full financial scholarship, so for their support. And I'm also
There's an audio issue again, I guess. Just we'll wait for a while.
are we in? There is some internet problem.
Yes, sir. Now we can hear
Yes, sir.
you.
Now you're audible.
Yeah. So this is the program Siva-Shakthi is all about. And I'm willing to integrate these children, bring them up in a format where they are part of everybody, give them, most important, like in the army, we actually strengthen the mind more than the body. Because beyond a particular point, it is the mental strength which carries you to your destiny of victory. So strengthening their mind will be a major program, which is where Ms. Sheela Jose will be coming in. And she is the psychologist who will be conducting this program of strengthening these children mentally to actually face the world and be proud of what they are. That is the key. They need to be counted and they need to stand in and say, be counted. And that's where we will go. We'll also be having a program where we will be teaching them all the medical aspects of what they are, how they are, and what they can be. And lastly is the legal aspects, because very few really know what are their legal rights. So these are some aspects will be apart from the general curriculum these children will be put through. Next slide, Janani. Janani, next slide. Can we? Okay. Basically, there has been a paradigm shift in the last 20 years. Basically, the disorder has become now diversity. From disorder, it has become diversity. From treatment, it has gone on to affirmation. From pathology to pride, and cure to community. We must understand it is a non-reversible process. We must make people understand it's a non-reversible process. There is no ailment here, so there is no cure either. There is only acceptance and understanding. And gender variance is a part of human diversity. If this becomes very clear to everybody, I think this issue can be solved. And one last issue which I would like to add is, when I come to this community, they're all surviving. So we have no reason to look down on them or look at them differently, because they have been rejected by us as a society, and they're all out there surviving, and they survive any which way. So my issue is, we need to be having compassion and empathy towards them. That's one thing we need to do. And if we want to really help them, I've also come to know that through the NGOs which are working for them, it's very tough to mainstream them, because how do you mainstream them where society is not accepting them? The only people who require reforming is actually the society, not them. They are earning to be accepted, but we are the one who needs to be reformed. And that can happen only at the school level, and only with children when they grow up to understand that all of them are equal, and they don't need to disown them or to neglect them or to turn their backs when they see them. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for all your insights into the topic. And, the fact that you said that it's not an ailment, it's a part of a natural phenomena. I think that is something that we all need to understand and really respect. So we just, based on what you've said, we have Amrita, one of our volunteers for this event, for this panel discussion. She would like to share a few points and ask you a question as well. So is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Amrita, you can take over.
Thank you, Chetna. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, Amrita.
So, when we talk about the accommodation status for the transgender people, trying to procure a house on rent, finding a roommate, being able to buy a house with a partner are themselves the challenges. Moreover, they also have to deal with the questions, indifferences, and also the direct taunts sometimes. Ever questioning landlords and also the judgmental neighbors are a huge concern. They are evicted by the landlords and they are also subjected to harassment. There are even complaints which are lodged against them, and thus they end up compromising on the land, and maybe also they get to pay more now. And also, sometimes they're not even given the security payment back. Being denied home loans by the banks and also financial assistance by the authorities, it takes almost many years for them to put some money aside to buy a house or at least take a place for rent. Putting all these aside, there are also some trans-friendly destinations in India like Kolkata, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and Chennai. So, as an example, being a transgender-friendly state like Tamil Nadu, there is an initiative where there is a home facility given for the transgender people. That is like more than 500 houses in and around Chennai. So that is almost in every district, and this is as of June 2019. And the eligibility for the home facility is that they have to hold a third gender identity card, and the procedure is that they have to apply it through the government schemes. So, sir, can you please elaborate regarding the need for their accommodation, the accommodation status right now, and also the accommodation facilities which are available for them?
Yeah, I think we need to understand two things. Amrita, can you see me? Yeah. We have to understand two things. One, we are talking about the transgenders who are already part of the community or who are among us. Now, when I say again, let us not talk about transgender, because transgender is only one of the identities. So we should stop using this terminology very loosely, that all of them are transgender. No. Technically speaking, a transgender is a person who has already undergone a reassigned surgery post 18 years of age, after the child becomes a major, from whatever is the born sexuality into the new sexuality in which she has reassigned herself. So that's when they become a transgender technically. But I understand what you're trying to say, that you're including the whole community as such. Now, all these, we cannot change the society overnight, period. That's something we all have to understand. This is not a today's problem. It is not only a century's problem or a decade's problem, or it is actually many thousands of years this issue is going on. Okay. The only place where I feel total reformation that can be done is reforming the society itself when the children are growing between the age group from 3 to 18. That is where understanding of the parents is the key. Once parents are willing to support their children, understand the children like any other children they have, all these problems will get resolved by itself, because none of us will grow with the fear for them. So whatever you're talking about, the landlord fear, the rent fear, this fear, all of them, it's like a male coming and taking a rent or a female coming and taking a rent. These people will also come and take a rent and move on. Okay, that's a long-term activity. But as of today, whatever the government is doing, whatever NGOs are doing, whatever projects that are undertaken through CSR, it is not addressing this age bracket between 3 to 18. This is addressing only those people above 18. 1. 2. Now, all these welfare measures which are taken, they are very minuscule for the numbers which are there outside. And when you talk about people who are working, people who are actually doing well, these are people where the percentage is pretty low in the community. Bulk of the community is still begging, walking the streets. They are struggling to survive. And they have a very defined structure for which a lot of work is being done by the NGOs and the CSR projects. They are not the ones who are actually what you're talking about, college students or people who are going for work, individuals who are going to work, and those kind of things. Only a few days back, I had a call from US, from Washington. She's a transgender lady called Emma Gabriel. Exactly the same problem. The landlords have thrown her out into the streets. She was in California, which is supposed to be a third gender or this LGBTQI friendly province or state. She was thrown out from there. The law enforcement agencies are against them. Then she went to Washington, and again she has the same problem, and she was struggling, and then the landlords again have thrown her out. So this is a struggle which all of them are going through globally, universally. What we as individuals can do is, firstly, educate ourselves, educate the people whom we know, and see if we can provide paying guest status to these people in our homes first, rather than anybody else. If we are able to do that, I'm sure we would have done a yeoman service, and also we would have made a difference in this world. Because say, for example, you're in a particular college studying. You're either a paying guest or a hostelite. So a segment of the hostel can be actually earmarked for these. If you're like you take a flat or apartment for hire, and then all your students are staying together, then definitely if you have this kind of an empathy, you can all be together. There is no requirement of only LGBTQI community going and hiring one separate building. And now when you take Samyukta, she will be coming. I'll request her to talk also. She doesn't seem to be having a problem. She's right now in South Korea. She's settled down. She's got a place to stay, and she's in a highly respectable job, and she's doing. So it is going to be a slow and long drawn process. I have hope. We all need to do what we can do in a small way, but ultimately we need to take the society to that level where no child enters the street. When no child enters the street, automatically this community will start dwindling outside. because this community sources only these children who are getting disowned. If no children are going to be feeding this community, at the end of the day, this community is going to die maybe over 30, 40 years. Okay, that's the way I look at it. So I think we need to take the word around. We need to make sure all schools become inclusive, and we need to grow as a community first. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I think we'll hand over the floor to our next panelist, Sheela ma'am. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You can start. Do you have a presentation?
Yes.
So will you be sharing your screen, ma'am?
Yeah,
Then I'll make
I'll
you
be
a
sharing.
yeah. So
I'll
I'll
be
just make you
sharing.
the co-host. Just a minute, ma'am.
Yeah.
So that you can share your screen. Yeah, ma'am, I've made you the co-host, so you can start sharing your screen, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. Very good morning to everyone. I think Major General Babu sir, he has given an elaborate details about today's program, our panel discussion. And I think he has reduced my burden by talking so many things about psychological issues also. In our lifetime, some days we feel very much elevated or in a euphoric mood. Sometimes we are so low. Some days we feel that we are on the top of the world. Sometimes we are underground or in the basement. But whether this is a permanent one, most of us, it is only a passing cloud. Because based on the opinion or remarks of others, we feel sometimes on high. Suppose you are constantly targeted by people around about your appearance, about your manners, about your behavior, how it would be, the feeling, how would be our mindset that we have to understand. And these transgenders or third gender or whatever terminology means, in their lifetime, they are facing almost every day from everybody, most of people. How would be their mindset? That we have to understand. Very small introduction. Let us go to this slide. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we will discuss about the psychological issues. And I have given major psychological issues here, like anxiety, stress, depression, aggression, substance abuse, self-hurting behavior, low self-esteem, suicidal attempt, etc. You have to imagine, normally, the so-called the normal population, what we are mentioning about us or cisgenders, at the age of 3 or 4, children will start understanding whether they are a boy or a girl. This is the general criteria. But sometimes, male-bodied children, they like to play with Barbie dolls, or they would like to dress up in girls' attire. then parents may be a little bit concerned, not much. But when they grow, they will start telling that, no, this is not your physical. I mean, when a body of a male is not in congruence with what the expression of the child. Mothers may not feel much, but fathers, they will start telling, no, it is not a boy behavior. You should behave like a boy. But the child, what the child is facing inside, no, I am more towards girls' behavior. And I like all those things. But they are not very sure at that particular age. And they are growing. By the age of 7, 8, and if they continue to do so, then they may experience some kind of very harsh treatment from the parents, mostly from fathers. That is what I have heard from these people. So they may get spanking, beaten up, or constantly criticizing. They feel that I am not okay. I don't know. I think I am different. So this message every day, if they are hearing, what will happen? In the brain, there will be a changes in the wiring system among the neuronal network. So this message will go deeper into them. And what they feel when they are young, they may be a little bit rebellious, they are a little bit aggressive, or they may feel like sitting alone. So parents may be watching all these behaviors, but they may not be knowing what is exactly happening to this child. So they may take to a psychiatrist or a pediatrician, and they will explain all these behavioral characteristics, like would like to sit alone, or sometimes not playing with others, or most of the time quarreling, or a little bit rebellious, all this attitude. Then I think, and I have heard that possibility of misdiagnosis. They may end up with some psychiatric medications because they may be diagnosed as ADHD or ODD or children with deviant behaviors, or they are a little bit depressed. So they will be giving psychiatric medications. And even doctors of the medical field or the so-called psychological field also, they may not look into the gender aspects, whether this is the triggering factor for all these behaviors. So finally, what is happening? The child is given psychiatric medications, and we know that their side effects unnecessarily. And the problem still continues. So then we can understand that these children are really very anxious. They don't know to whom we can share our problem, whether others will accept. So normally they will share this thing to the mother first, because she is normally very close to the child. And mother also, she cannot accept this initially. Those aspects we will be seeing later. So what I am trying to say is, these children are very anxious at a younger age. And when they become older, it will reflect on their personality. So these type of anxiety may lead to other type of psychiatric problems also, like they are constantly under stress, and they have to fight with everybody. I mean, at home, or if they are going to the school there with their peers, and they cannot express themselves authentically. They may have to act the opposite gender. So many things are there. So all these things will lead them to undergo a lot of psychological issues. I was just searching in the net, doing some homework for this presentation. And I got a shock actually when I saw this information. See, amongst these genders, normally 18% of population are affected by anxiety, and 5% with depression. This is the general population, I mean in India, the survey they have conducted in India only. And among transgenders, this is totally different. And this is quite alarming also. Nearly 31% to 50% of transgenders are estimated to have this type of problems. And they have even, many of them have attempted suicide before the age of 20 years. Is this quite alarming? And the suicide rate, we don't know exactly what is the correct rate because in our country, documentation is little bit poor. So we don't know exactly the numbers, but more or less, when I compare with other countries also, this feels that I think fit with our country too. 1 minute. And we can see that nearly 62% of them are not living with their family. Do you know what is the reason? They are not comfortable with the family environment or they are forced to go out. So what do you think that major causes for these type of issues? Whether it is coming from internally or whether we are giving external pressures on them. The first thing is, as Major General said, lack of awareness of the community. We are not accepting them as they are. That is the major concern. And we don't have that empathetic feeling. We may be having some sympathy, but sometimes we don't know, we are afraid of when we see them because most of the time we are seeing them on the road. So we may be afraid of. So it is very difficult for us to accept them because we don't know the in-depth of their problems. And they are faced with abuse. Abuse, not only physical abuse, sexual abuse also. And every now and then have to undergo verbal harassment. They may be bullied. So they are most of the time left out. They feel we need not mingle with other genders, this so-called binary group. And sometimes they are victimized and in any public meeting or public place or wherever, they feel that there is a kind of a discrimination about them. And as earlier Babu sir was mentioning about the employment opportunities, many of them are not willing to give them jobs. So this is also an additional factor for their psychological problems. Stigma, based on the stigma, the shame what they are undergoing is really horrible. When we hear about the journey of some of these transgenders or when they are expressing, we feel really very sad. We cannot understand because we are not able to feel as they feel. And they have a lot of psychological issues, but depends upon the transitioning period also, there may be some differences. They may be waiting for transformation, physical transformation as well as some social transformation. So during that time, they may have some difficulty in finding partners and they may face some problem with their family relationship with the parents or siblings or partners and others. And they're very much afraid of the general population, whether they may have to undergo any physical assault or something. And in the initial stages, they may be hiding because of the compulsion of the family, but to a certain extent, after a certain period, they cannot hide. So they may feel that when people know me as a different person, how to face. These are all the emotional issues during the transitioning period. We can very well tell that, okay, they can go for some surgeries, gender reassigning surgeries, etc. But they don't know how it would be. And the hormonal therapy, what they are taking, after the effects of that, and all this time they had some facial hair work, etc. And it has to be removed, and there may be some voice changes, how to cope up with all these things. These are all some of the issues they face during the transitional period. And a very peculiar thing, when they were born, in the certificate it is mentioned as boy or a girl, but later on, after this transitional phase, they may have to change the name and even dressing, everything. And it has to be mentioned in the documents. So for changing that name, they have to go, and it is an additional burden for them. And after the transitioning period also, they are facing some problems. Earlier, they might have thought that, okay, it will solve all my problems. But after this transitional phase, they may feel that not all the problems are solved. And they might have thought that I would be appeared like this, my physical appearance would be like this, but it may not be exactly like that. So they may have some difficulties. And regarding the surgeries also, they are not having much satisfaction, for some people at least. Earlier, their emotional problems were different, but after this transitional period, it must be something else. So they have to cope up with all those things. Now we have to see what would be the initial expression of the parents once they understand that their children or their child, their son or daughter, now we can no more hide. And because they have decided to go for some surgeries or change their gender, initially they will be having a shock. It is common to everybody, even when we are, suppose suddenly we are affected with some major disease. What will happen? We cannot accept as it is. It will be a shock to us. Like that, these parents also have a very great shock. But after that, they will not accept immediately. They have to undergo a denial stage. No, it cannot happen to me, to my son or to my daughter. No, never. Then they may feel a little bit angry when others pinpoint about these matters. They are really irritated. So this is also one of the emotional situation of that particular parent. Then they may feel that they're totally in a desperate stage, total loss. How it would be? Because earlier, they may be thinking that, okay, I am a mother of 2 boys. Now it is no more, it is not like that. See, now 1 son and 1 daughter. So she lost 1 son. So the loss of that son, even though the child is alive, but still she feels that my son is gone. Now instead of that, I got another daughter. So it is very difficult to accept. So these are the initial status of the parents. And they have other concerns also. What will happen to their child? Whether child will be safe outside, because we cannot keep the child always inside. He has to go to the school or college or to face the society in the workplace. How can I protect my child? So they have these fears. and fear of future, whether we can identify a partner or a job for the child. So this is another one. And advocacy. Who is the advocate for their children? Naturally, parents. In many areas, they have to go and fight for their right. It may be in the school initially, then later on in the society in various setups. So they have to form a group, advocacy group later on, then only they can survive with their children. Another very difficult part of the parent is how the siblings will accept. All these years, they must be thinking that, okay, I have a brother or I have a sister. But suddenly one day coming and telling that, no, I am no more your brother, I am sister, or vice versa. Initially, they may be finding it very difficult to accept their own siblings. And a peculiar thing in India, because our society setup, we are always thinking about the future of other children also. So they have, what will happen, whether my daughter, because of having a different gender child in our house, whether my daughter will get a good alliance or my son will get a good alliance, and even whether we have a difficulty in mingling with other family members, relatives. All these things are very high in our country. Then frustration with the healthcare professionals. Majority of the time, even healthcare professionals are unaware of these problems. So because of unawareness, they may be asking them some difficult questions or unwanted questions, and they have to face all these things. And there is a possibility of misdiagnosis also. So that is another concern. Another thing is, among the parents, one parent may accept this problem, or not problem as such, I think this condition, they will accept the child as it is. But another parent may not be able to accept. So there may be, or sometimes parents may accept, grandparents may not accept. They will be calling the child in a different pronouns. So that will be difficult for the person to accept that. And because of the birth of this particular child, it may become a reason for the conflict at home. So the person may think that I need not have born in this family or in this way. Because of me only the family dispute. Okay, these are the major problems faced by these persons and as well as parents. So what we can do? Externally, okay, we have to give a lot of awareness program to the community and society. And from the beginning, I think it should start from the schooling stage. So all these schools should be friendly with all these things, I think Major General has explained. But for the psychological issues, what they are undergoing, their internal psychological issues, there are some measures. Counseling will be very helpful for them, but that too, trans-affirming counseling sessions, not like general counseling sessions. Then a lot of psychotherapies are there. It will be very helpful to them, cognitive behavior therapy or dialectical behavior therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, gestalt therapy, development framework, so many things are there. All these things will be helpful for them to strengthen their mind to face this society. I think I have covered major aspects selected by me. And in our country, earlier, I think so many years ago, I think we were not very much have a negative attitudes towards this gender variance. Because when I gone through some materials, literature, found that it is there. Even in Mahabharata, we were telling, and in Sanskrit terminology, there is a word given for that, for this neutral gender or transgender, some word like Kinnara. So we are aware of all these things in so many thousands of years ago. And these people were actually respected in many aspects during that time. Even you know that even still in North India and all this Fujira community, people think that they have a divine ability or something. So during some festival time, I mean birth of a baby or a marriage, these people will come and bless their family members of the child. So they were not rejected actually at that time. But once this colonization, I think this British rule came, then only this binary recognition of gender was insisted. I think we may have to go back to our culture and explore more about that. And I was going through some literature in Ayurveda also. So 2000, more than 2000 years, around 2500 years ago, Shushruta has written about in Shushruta Samhita and even Charaka also in Charaka Samhita about this transgenders, their variants, all those things it has written. So I think we have to explore more on our culture also. Thank you for patiently listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insights on the psychological implications and problems that, the gender variance brings and how we can address them. That was very insightful. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to Samyukta, ma'am.
Hello.
Yeah, ma'am, I can
Can
hear
you
you.
see and hear me?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. Cool. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of this nice panel. Where do I start? Often people ask me, when did you know you were a girl, right? That's the most common question that I, as a transgender woman, face. And I always thought, I always knew. So there was no this particular moment when you start thinking, oh, like we don't get up one day and then say, oh, I was a man all these days and suddenly I feel like I'm a woman. I don't think it happens that way. When I think about my past, I was born as one of 3 boys in a conservative town in Coimbatore. And my parents were always very supportive of who I was. That doesn't mean I told my parents when I was 5, I did not go and tell my parents, hey, I'm a boy, but I think I'm a girl. And my parents were like, okay, so you're a girl now. Okay, we are going to happily accept you as a girl. Nothing of that sort. What I'm trying to say is, whatever I felt was my personal experience. I never shared it with my parents. But that doesn't mean that they kind of noticed what I was or who I was, how I behaved. Obviously, I had a very feminine demeanor and all that. But my parents never questioned why I behave differently from most other children. Instead, they were actually, I think they were very celebrative of the difference that, I brought to the table. It was my mother who put me in a Bharatanatyam dance school. So I learned Bharatanatyam when I was like starting, when I was like 5 or something like that. And I learned it for about 10 years. And this dance school was like my safe space to be who I was, to express my full self. Every year when the annual celebrations happen in my dance school, I always dressed up as a girl. My father, who is a tailor, he stitched my first blouse, and my mother helped me with putting makeup and getting the jasmine flowers and all that. In fact, my father was very proud that I was one of the best dancing, students in my dance school. So when I think about all of this, did they consciously decide, okay, my child is different, and the difference is actually this, that the child was born as a boy, but, she feels like a girl, and I'm going to accept my child, and I'm going to do all of these things. I don't think that was the thing. When I asked my mother, like, you probably always knew that I was different, and So how did you deal with that? And my mother said, all we thought was, we tried to figure out what things made you happy, and we just let you be. We just let you do what makes you happy, right? So when I think about everything that Major Babu said and Sheela Madam said, do we really need to label things? Do we really need to super understand the terminologies, gender, sex, and sexuality, and all of those things? And kind of, do we really need to have that level of understanding to be able to deal with it? I don't know. My parents never ever like my father did not even go to school, and my mother was like, she had an SSLC or something like that. Even if they wanted to go and figure these things out and know and understand the terminology and why psychology and all, I don't know if they would, if that was necessary for them to deal with me. All they did was they wanted to know what made me happy, and they just let me be. Now, I think that is the only way we can address the problems that people are talking about, right? Not by learning terminologies, not by learning psychology, not by learning, oh, we have, these N genders and, LGBT. No. The only way you can make things easier for children who are different is to understand that they are different and just let them be, right? The bigger problem in our society is we are, strictly binary, right? For example, when Major Bala put that slide, that is like the whole LGBTQIA thing is between the female and male gender. To be honest, that's not exactly right, because that comes from the whole thought that everything should fall within the binary aspect of male and female. That is not really how the world works. And if you want to know what LGBTQI is, like, you can go into the internet, search, and there are enough literature available for each of those words and what they are and how, and you can learn all of that. The simpler thing to understand is, from a social and the behavioral perspective, we think there is something called male behavior, there is something called female behavior, right? And people who were born with male genitals have to conform to what we call as male behavior. And people who were born with female genitals has to conform with this whole female behavior, right? And then slowly now we are saying, okay, if there are people who are born with male genitals, but they are trying to explore this female behavior, we call them transgender women, and these things. And I'm kind of, again, what I say could be very meta, could be very difficult for you to understand. But what I'm saying is there any way we could deconstruct the social structure that there is something called male behavior and there is something called female behavior? Is it possible to not even talk about a male child acting like a female child or a female child acting like a male child? I don't even want to talk about in those terms. There is just behavior, right? There is just aspects of how people present themselves. There are things that people like and do not like to do. There are colors that people like and do not like. And there are partners that people like to be with and do not like to be with. And there are, gender expressions that people like to show and do not like to show, right? And this whole thing about everything has to fall within the male and the female and the binary definition, is kind of, uneasy for me personally, because, to say that, a male child who displays certain aspects of female behavior, like dressing up and kind of put makeup on and all that, assumes that if you are a transgender woman or a transgender girl, you have to conform to this definition that you were born as a male, but you show some aspects of this female thing, which is like putting makeup on. What if, I'm just asking, what if a child which was born as male thinks that she is female, like, which is what, in her mind she thinks, but she does not show any kind of, affinity towards putting makeup on. She does not like a man, like to be sexually associated with a man. Does it make that person any less of a transgender woman? Because our idea is, this is male, this is female, one to the other to the this. I know what I say may be confusing for you, because because see, it is important for each of us to actually put things in boxes, to clearly define something, to clearly say, okay, this is male behavior, this person is born with female genitals, but she is exhibiting male behavior, so she is a transgender man. We want to force some of these ideologies to all of these people. But what I'm saying is, don't worry about any of those, labels. Don't worry about any of those boxes. Don't worry about any of those definitions. The simpler thing is, people are born, people want to express themselves in whatever way they want, in however they want to be, and everything is okay. Everything is acceptable. Everything is how they are. And like what everybody say, everything is normal, right? And the way when people say, oh, normal people, abnormal people, what is normal, right? For a vegetarian, eating vegetables is normal, and for them, when people eat meat, they are like, oh, that is not normal, because they are hardcore vegetarians, and they see somebody, for example, if you if you live in India, right, and if you're a non-vegetarian, right, you would eat what? Chicken, beef, pork, and then you go to China, and then you see people eating snakes and insects, and we say, oh, that is abnormal. There is nothing in this world as normal, abnormal. It is like what you are experiencing, what you are born with, what you see in your extended atmosphere, and you call that as normal, right? But for somebody, for example, somebody in China who eat all of these things, they think veganism, which is very popular in the US, where they don't eat nuts, where they don't eat dairy products, that is abnormal, right? Why would anyone not drink milk? Why would anyone not eat meat? And for them, that is abnormal, right? So this concept, again, we are very hard bound to use terminologies. We like to put things into boxes. We want to define things. And I envision a future where we don't want to, put things into boxes. Anybody can behave in any way that they think is okay for them, and we should be able to accept them the way they are, right? So that is one important thing I want to talk about. And in particular, this whole third gender narrative that India had, and when Sheela madam talked about this whole, we have our scriptures and our ancient literature talking about this third gender or this transgender. Anybody is able to talk about things with the amount of data information they have at that point in time, right? 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, right? When people, it seems so that, in general, when you see a man and a woman, and then somebody behaves slightly differently from this, socially constructed things, we say, oh, they are the third set of people, right? The third gender. And which is why in India, the third gender narrative is so popular and often associated with transgender people, right? And I think somebody also talked about, in Chennai, these 400, 500 odd houses that are allotted to transgender people can be given to them only if they identify as the third gender. And I'm questioning, who defines who is the third gender? And if some people say third gender, who is the first gender? Are men the first gender? If men are the first gender, who decided they were the first gender, right? Did they run in a running race and then they came first, and then men were first and women were second, and then, transgender people came the third, which is why they have the third gender thing? That is ridiculous, because we are so uninformed. We don't know what we are talking about. Now, take my case, right? I was born as a boy with functioning genitals. Like, I could have lived a boy all my life if I wanted to, right? But at least in the West, they use three distinct terms: sex, gender, and sexuality. And we often are very confused. Again, it is not that clear, but just for making it easier, because I've been talking a lot of abstract terms and I want to put a little bit perspective. It is said sex is what you're born with physically, right? So your male, female is like, if you're physically born with male genitals, you are of the male sex, and female genitals, female sex. And like Major Babu said, if you're born with both, or sometimes you're born with neither, it is you cannot define the genitals properly, then it is intersex, right? So that is sex, what you're physically born with. Gender is a social construct. Gender is what you think you are, your behavior, your social presence, your expressions, right? So that is, again, this is all Western concept, but I think I agree with the concept per se. So gender is your social thing. Me, I was born with male sex, but in my mind, I always thought I was a female. So this incongruence between the physical sex and the mental gender, that is why people call us, transgender. And that is where the whole third gender narrative comes from. But I identify as a woman, right? So which is kind of shocking to more people. Are you not the third gender? No, I am female, right? And the word transgender is actually an adjective. It is not a noun. It is not cool or okay anymore to just say transgender. You always say transgender woman, transgender man, transgender children, or transgender people, because transgender is not a noun, transgender is an adjective, which means you have to add something after transgender. So transgenders these days is considered very offensive, as the way you say it. It is transgender people. If you don't know what you're talking about, just say transgender people. Much easier, right? So like for example, like Indian woman, beautiful woman, transgender woman, right? They're all women. Almost all transgender women will tell you they are women, right? Same goes with men. However, when I went to the US, I lived in Seattle, and that was my first time talking to this person who identified themselves as gender non-conforming, gender, non-binary, or gender fluid, which is they don't want to identify with the defined binary genders that the society has given to them. And I spoke to them, and they told me, some days I feel like I'm a woman, some days I feel like I'm a man, and some days I don't even want to think about, defining my gender. And at least in the West, these people are given the gender non-conforming or gender binary, non-binary or gender fluid, And, ideally, they should be called the third gender if you really want to, do that thing. But in general, we should keep that away. So, again, we are ignorant, right? As a group, all of us are ignorant. We learn more and more as we talk to people, as we learn, understand, and we put all of that with our preconceived notions, and we kind of make the best sense of what things could be. So when I said what Major Babu said in that slide may not be right, I didn't mean to say he's wrong. It's more like you come with the previous set of notions that male and female, the binary thing, and you try to fit everything else, the new things you learn within the things that you already know, and you kind of try to make sense of it. It is what all of us do. Everyone does that. Even I do that too. When I know about a person who is asexual, which is they do not experience any sexual attraction towards any gender for that matter, and I was like, how is that even possible, right? How is it even possible that you don't have sexual attraction? You don't want to have sex with somebody? And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. Maybe they are just faking it, or maybe, they just don't know. They have not experienced it. They've not done it for the right person. I don't know, that is my understanding, but I try to fit everything with my understanding. That may not be always right. And these things keep evolving all the time. The more we research, the more we talk about, the more we know. But one thing we know for sure, the physical attributes, sexual characters, chromosomal characters, they are all in a huge spectrum, right? And the social attributes, which is the gender things, the way people behave, what we call as a female behavior, a male behavior, right? That is another huge spectrum. And all of us fall somewhere in the spectrum, right? So there is no clear who is male and who is female. There is no clear definition. Everything is just a spectrum, and we all fall somewhere in both physically what we feel and experience, and mentally from a gender, behavioral, social perspective, what we feel and express. It is all in a spectrum, and we fall somewhere there. And the easiest thing way to deal with this is just let people be. Let people do whatever they're happy doing. Let people do whatever makes them happy. And as Major Babu said, there are so many examples of successful people when parents, relatives, friends, and acquaintances, office colleagues, and people we meet are respectful of each other, respectful of the fact that this person is different. I don't understand that. I don't know what term, what label to give, but I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to give them the dignity they deserve, because everyone is a human being. And that is the only way we can, understand and move forward and try to address some of the decades and centuries long discrimination that these people have gone through. And in Indian culture, we are more accepting of transgender people than homosexual people, because we don't understand how a male can be attracted to a male when both of them show zero female characters. We are always are taught to understand, you need opposites attract. We need to have, so even when two men are together, we question, oh, who is the female gender in this, and who is the male? Who takes the female, responsibility, and who takes the male? It need not matter. It may not even work that way. It is possible that two men who identify as men, who show distinctive male characters, can be attracted to each other and fall in love and then form a beautiful family. That is all possible. We just don't know. We are just ignorant of how things would happen, but that doesn't mean we cannot respect for who people are. So I think I know that sometimes I've confused you people, but the simplest takeaway from what I want to give you is, ask, if you don't know what people are saying, just ask them. And most people are able to express who they are, what they are, how they feel, and all that, and try to be respectful. It's as simple as that. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Thank you so much.
Beautiful to hear. This is so beautiful to hear, Samyukta ma'am, and we're so glad you're talking about it. Sudhiti, yes, you can take over.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving such an eye-opener perspective. I would first like to talk about a few points about points that facilitate the process of coming out. So the first would be self-realization, and that would be being brave. That, you know, like ma'am said, that this is a completely normal process, and we all fall under some spectrum, so it's completely normal. There is no defined gender or any role. The second would be to be patient and not to act in haste. Time heals everything. It can be a rough journey, but I think it is important to be absolutely patient. And the third would be, I would like to spread awareness about National Coming Out Day, which falls on October 11th. And this, I'm just spreading awareness about this because, you know, it might encourage people, transgender people, or, you know, anyone to come out to their family or friends and help normalize the stigma, and just, you know, like ma'am said, there's no specific third gender, it's just who we are. So it will help facilitate that. Ma'am, I would like to ask you a question, but it is a little sensitive. So if you'd give me a permission, I'd like to go ahead with it.
Yeah, please. See, there are no stupid questions or wrong questions, as long as people people put those questions in a respectful manner, and their intention is to know and understand. Some people come and tell me, hey, can I ask you this question, like of when did you know and all? Yes, it is sometimes rude and disrespectful to kind of ask me, when did I, like if you're a girl and I come and ask you, when did you know you were a girl? It's kind of odd, right? It's very similar to me. Like, I always knew I was a girl, but I understand the intention with which they're asking that question, that they want to learn and understand when such things happen. So it is okay. No question is a stupid or wrong question. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to ask you, so I just talked about the process of coming out. If you could just give us a little insight so as to, how a person can normalize coming out, or like any tips, or just the process of coming out, as well as, ma'am, in your opinion, what do you think are the challenges that a person can face from any transgender person might face while coming out to their family, friends, or just any acquaintance?
Yeah, so I can talk about only my personal experience. I did not even talk about this whole thing to my parents until I was 28, right? And to think my parents were the super supportive people, and a lot of people expect that I would have like spoken to them and hashed out the whole idea, and I always, no. I decided to talk about this to my very understanding parents only when I was personally comfortable talking about it. And the way it happened is very interesting. My elder brother was going to get married. So he was 29 and I was 28 back then. And my parents were, thinking, and the other relatives were also thinking, okay, these two guys, they're just like 1 year apart. Why don't we get them married at the same time? So my relatives started, saying, hey, let's get them married around the same time and all. And my mother came to me and asked me, okay, so we want to look for a girl for you and for your brother. So what do you think? At that time, I just told my mother, see, I don't want to get married, right? and maybe I will never ever want to get married. I don't know. So you just go ahead and get the brother married, right? And my mother told me, whatever makes you happy, that is fine with us, right? In fact, my father said, so around that time I was actually relocating to Luxembourg in Europe, and my father said, okay, you don't worry, I'll tell the relatives that you're actually going away to another country, so they won't pester us with questions. Are you actually getting you're getting your son married? The important point there are 2 points here. One, they did not pester me with things. Oh, why don't you not want to get married? What will happen to you in future? And you're a man, and do you want to get married? No questions asked. 0 questions asked whatsoever. Second, how they thought that our relatives are going to pester us or ask uncomfortable questions to me, and they said, no, we will take care of them. We'll make sure they don't ask you stupid questions, right? 2 very important things, right? When you actually have when you want to be understanding to your parents, to your friends, like they cannot force me to come out and tell them, hey, I'm a girl, I don't want to get married to a man, and that is why I no, right? You cannot force anybody to come out. All I told them was, I don't want to get married. 1 year later, I came back to India for Diwali, and my mother asked, it is okay if you don't want to get married, but like, help me understand. But she told me, remember one thing, right? When you say something, right, it is possible either I understand completely what it is, or I don't understand completely what it is, because I'm a small town girl. I do not have experience with these things, right? Independent of whether I understand or I do not understand, our equation between you and me is going to be exactly the same. I'm your mother, and I will accept you, whatever it is. So see if you can help me understand. And in that second step, all I told her was, because she asked me why I did not want to get married, and I told her, I'm not interested in women, right? Maybe I'm interested in men, right? Though, as I said, I always knew I was a girl, right? So I wasn't going to, explain all of this, because I did not know what she will understand or she won't understand. So it was hard. Again, in India, it is very difficult for children to talk to their parents about these things. And think about how wonderful my mother was, that she did not force me. She did not tell me, oh, tell me everything, or like, she did not put me in that uncomfortable space to explain myself, right? All she said was, okay, just, see if you can help me understand. And all I told her was, I don't want to get married to a woman. It's as simple as that. And she said, okay, fine, if that is what you want. And then when I was 32, when I was in Seattle, that is when I decided to transition from male to female, because for whatever reason, I always thought I would never pass for a girl. So it's very difficult, for anybody who's going through transition. So it took a long time for me to actually go ahead and act on my instinct that I'm a girl. Like some people say, people always know, but sometimes they decide to act on it much later. Like, you always know you are gay or lesbian, but you don't decide to act on it, right? I always knew I was, I was a girl, but I decided to act on it only when I was 32, when I was in Seattle. And the atmosphere was wonderful to be able to go through this transition. And that year, when I came for Diwali, I told my mother that, next year when I come for Diwali, I'm going to come as a woman, right? And my mother was like a little bit taken aback, because, her biggest concern was not that, I have this problem or I have this issue. Her biggest concern was, so I have 2 brothers, both of them married with an extended family. And next year when you come as a woman, she felt like, we don't know how the, family, will take it, how the extended family will take it, the brothers and their wives, how will they deal with it? It's going to be difficult and all that. So she told me, why don't you talk to your brothers first, right? Instead of talking to my brothers, I first spoke to my sister-in-law, and I told her that, next year when I come for Diwali, I'm going to come as a woman. And she looked at me for a moment, and then she told me, okay, school. And then she told me, okay, she makes these, silk thread bangles. I don't know how many of you know. So you kind of take a bangle and you kind of roll silk thread on. And she told me, I make these silk thread bangles. Which color bangle you want? And I told her I wanted pink. So by the time I came for Diwali the next year, she had bangles and like earrings ready for me, right? So as much as how beautiful and open and accommodative my family was, they never forced me to or put me in an uncomfortable situation to tell them what really is going on. They just let me do it at my own pace, at my own time and all that. And thankfully, as I said, I always say, I was blessed with such people around me, and that is how my coming out story is. So it's kind of very odd for me to say, okay, this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way. It is what makes you comfortable. It is what, like, whenever you are ready, people can always come out and talk about it. There are a lot of things that's going on. Sometimes they're also not sure if coming out is going to have adverse impact and stuff like that. So to each their own.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering our question, and we really appreciate it.
So, guys, I'll be opening the panel for questions. So those who are on Zoom, you can unmute and ask your questions directly. And those who are on YouTube, please type your questions and send in the comment section. We have our organizing team. The organizing team will be sending those questions in here in Zoom, and we'll be directing it to the appropriate panelist. So if anyone have any questions, you can unmute yourself. Those who are in the Zoom, you can start by unmuting yourself and putting your question. So before anyone, since no one have put up a question, I have one of my own here. So again, my question is in two phases. One oriented towards Samyukta ma'am, and second, Babu sir could answer this. And so this is about Samyukta ma'am. So when you were going through your transition phase and when you were in your college time, how did you find the environment in here? And the second part of question, Babu sir, so how could we make that environment better for any person?
So, yeah, so let me quickly answer that question. So I studied engineering in one of the top private engineering colleges in India, in Coimbatore. And obviously, coming to a very conservative society, the first year of college, so I was in hostel, and the first year of hostel was very, very bad. I keep telling people, when boys come to college, especially the first year, that is when they kind of try to act like men, right? That is their transition phase. From boys, they try to, become men, and they are kind of, bubbling with testosterone, and they're just all this, this toxic masculinity that is, and then the whole and how our social constructs have forced gender confirmation on everybody, the way you have to behave and you have to talk and all of this. It was a very hard year. The first year was very hard for me because I was in a boys' hostel. And, yes, there were people who mocked and teased for the way I spoke or behaved, and it was very hard. The way I try to deal with it is, first I needed to focus on my studies because I always knew financial independence and social status is the only way I can have whatever I wanted, whatever I aspired, right? So I cannot, give away any of, those things simply because a few boys were teasing me. That doesn't mean like I did not have, thoughts of running away, or yes, even sometimes I was suicidal and all that. But thankfully, as I said, my parents were very, very supportive. So then I tried to find a couple of friends, like-minded friends who put aside the fact that I was a boy behaving like a girl, and they were more interested in what I had to say as a person. So I was trying to figure out friends who were like-minded, and kind of I moved around with them. Somehow I managed to get through. From the second year, I was a little bit more confident of who I was, and I did not let this teasing and the mocking bother me. And when I graduated, as one of the top 10 in my university, in my college, and I graduated with the highest paying job of all outgoing students in that year, right? Because I was able to focus on, because I was able to force myself to focus on studies, because I knew that is the only way I can get out of the mess that I'm in, right? But that is not going to happen for most people, especially people who did not have support from their families. And the best thing that we could do is to have LGBT community support system in colleges, literally everywhere. I went back to my college, one of the best private engineering colleges in India, to talk about this, and they said no. I tried twice, and they said no, that they cannot have an LGBT support group in the college because we are a conservative society. That is the level of even like the so I sometimes think education does not really make you any better, especially when it comes to things like this, right? You are still in the dark when it comes to what people's rights are, what people think, and all that, because the professors there were some of the best PhDs and all of that, but they still said that they can't have an LGBT support group. And I think two things have to change. One, people have to stop thinking this gender variance or homosexuality is an issue, as a problem that needs to be dealt with, and it should be isolated and all that. So that mentality we have to have, by discussions, by talks like these, and when you guys go and talk to your parents and relatives and friends, and talk about this in a way that this is natural and normal, and this is how this is, right? The second thing, from a systemic organizational perspective, people need to understand that we need to have this LGBT support group, and in a closed group for people to be able to come, feel that it is a safe space for them to talk about those things. Maybe we should have, in the US, there is this guidance counselors, psychology counselors, student counselors. We never had any of that sort when we grew up, when we went to schools or in colleges. And I think we should think about bringing in mental health programs, in schools and colleges, having guidance counselors, having LGBT support group. But for that, we need huge organizational change. And once the social change happens, I think the organizations change can happen. But the social change is the most difficult part, and which is why the organizational change, which is kind of easier compared to social change. Like, it is much easier to go and form an LGBT group in a college, in a city, like Bangalore, than having our entire society change. But the thing is, both of these are important and need to go hand in hand. And I'll let Babu sir talk about the other things.
Samyukta, thanks a lot. It was so wonderful hearing you. And in fact, very educative, and I learned quite a lot. I thought 2 years of research would let me know a lot of things, but I think I got wiser today. There are two things which I clearly understand from what I hear from you. Education means nothing. Your wisdom is what really counts. I wish all parents were like your parents, and they were wise. And someday I would like to meet them, if it's okay with you. Okay, I would love to meet them, and I'd love to really congratulate them, because I can't imagine the kind of wisdom they had. Not only bringing you up, and they made a wonderful person out of it. That's great. because I have a personal experience that I want to share here with everybody. I have a relative of mine who's there, whose son happens to be part of the community. But however much they think about, it is tough as a parent for them to accept, and that's the usual. So from where it comes, your parents have been amazing. That's wonderful. But how can this come about? You know, the percentage of such parents, I'm sure, cannot be more than not even 1% of the population. I think the only way we can bring about everybody at the level of your parents is only by spreading the by word of mouth and making them understand what the issue is, and making them realize that, like I rightly brought about, that let the children be what they are. You know, they do not judge them into any box. Let them grow the way they want to. I call it the inward blossoming. So let them inwardly blossom. In fact, I think you slightly misunderstood my slide. Basically, when a child is born, the first thing they can identify is male, female, and intersex. That's the identification they can do at the day of their birth. And actually, in between lies the whole spectrum of behavioral things, which is what you rightly brought about. That what really matters is how the child grows and expresses itself. That's what really counts. And if we allow a child to grow the way the child wants to grow, I'm sure everybody will be like Samyukta. No, we'll not find anybody around struggling. Okay, thank you very much, Samyukta. It's wonderful. Wonderful. I think that also answers the question which was put to us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there anything else you want to know, Vishnu?
Yes, sir. So we have a second question, sir. So as an organization, SIMSA and Courage and Bleed with Pride, we are working on a policy towards migrant youth, basically on migrant youth and the problems they are facing, on which my council and my team are specifically oriented to understand problems that trans people face when they're going to the transition, and also when they're changing their location because of the studies and career. So Samyukta ma'am, could you give us a light on this perspective? So how was the environment in India compared to the foreign countries, since you were a person who have been in both places?
Yeah, so it's funny because after Section 377 was, written down, right? Suddenly corporates woke up to the fact that they need to be inclusive, and they want to talk about diversity, and it's become a buzzword now, and everybody is like, during July, the Pride month, everybody has that rainbow colored flag on their thing, and then they talk about all of that. There is a lot of talk, to be honest, not real action. And when it comes to, especially transgender inclusion in corporate workplaces, it is funny how, we have always known transgender people as real and existing in our society, but we needed the underwriting of the Section 377 for corporates to wake up and talk about it, right? When it comes to LGBT people, lesbian, gay, bisexual, probably Section 377 did matter a bit. And then it may be justified for corporates to talk about it and talk about LGBT people after. But for transgender people, like, they were always there. We have seen them in streets, and we have seen them in traffic signals and all of that. And then suddenly corporate, but I'm happy. At least, better late than never. At least now, even at least under the LGBT umbrella, that they are able to bring in transgender people to mainstream jobs, right? So which means, so I was with Amazon in 2012, and I was working for their office in Bangalore. And Amazon has this wonderful community called GL Amazon, Gay Lesbian Amazon, which is actually an affinity group for LGBT support. And it was widely active in the Western countries, in Europe and the US. And India did not have a chapter at that time in 2012. And I remember an incident that happened to me. So what had happened was, I was in a discussion with some of my peers, and we were talking about some problem, and we were discussing some solutions, and we had arguments about whose solution is better and all of that. We came out of that discussion, and one of the people in the group who was talking to me earlier about a different approach he wanted to take, and then suddenly he called me and he told me, Santosh, which is my name back then, Santosh, why do you talk like a girl, right? I was taken aback. This is like Amazon, a multinational company, and we are in Bangalore city. And then think about this guy who comes and tells me, he kind of like threw me, from my thing. And I was like, really, why would he say such a, because his intention was to demean the way I spoke or my behavior or something like that. And his intention was to berate me at that moment. And the funny thing was, at that moment, I didn't know my rights. I didn't know that I could complain about him. This is harassment, workplace harassment. I didn't know I could complain about him to HR. I did not have an LGBT support group like the GL Amazon group, which was active in every other part of the world, but not in Amazon India. I did not know I could reach out to them for support for things like this, because after that, every time I look at him, that is the only question running behind my mind. This guy thinks low of me because of not what I bring to the table as an engineer, but because of how I behave. Right, and it was very hard for me. Like I still now I don't talk to that person. Right now he's a director. He was an engineer with me, and he's now a director at Amazon, and probably he has mended his ways and he has changed. But still now, it is a huge thing what he did. It looks a little small, but it was a huge thing. So that's when I decided to move out of India, and I moved to Luxembourg, and I live with Amazon. And when I moved to Luxembourg, right. Amazon used to have this summer picnics where you could bring your family, your significant others, your extended family, children, everybody to the picnic, and you can have a good time with your colleagues, introduce them, and you can actually have a good time. My manager at that time, I've just been 3 months in Luxembourg, and there was this picnic in August, and then she brought her partner, and then she introduced me, hey, this is my partner, and 2 ladies they were. And I was surprised. And then my manager's manager was a gay guy. He was married to another guy, and they had 2 adopted children, and they were all, in the picnic. And what the most important part of this was not that they behaved like a regular couple, as a normal family, but it was how everybody else around them spoke to them and dealt with them as if they are no different than a regular family and a regular couple, right? So this spoke to about how they think that this is all normal, how as individuals, not just, so because we are all individuals coming together as medical students or, as employees of a company, but it is our individual prejudice and bias that kind of reflects in the way that we deal with in though there are certain organization rules, harassment policies and this and that, we individuals are people, and then we have our own biases and stuff. So, at that time, it would have been very difficult for me to transition if I was in India, right? But I think things have changed. When I came back to India in 2018, we formed the Glabazon India chapter in Amazon. When I joined Swiggy, I was part of the D&I council, and we formed Swiggy Pride Network, which was actually the LGBT support group. And now I work for a company called Coupang, which is a big e-commerce startup in Seoul, South Korea. But things are changing. They're slow, but things are changing.
So glad to hear that, ma'am. And we have a question from Janani. So Janani, you can unmute and ask your question.
So ma'am, I have one question for you. So 10 years down the line, what are the changes you expect will actually, uplift the LGBTQ community as a whole? And also the second part of the question is, what changes would you like so that, you know, the society as a whole, we accept the LGBTQ people, the community, and we also, you know, learn and grow in acceptance. So what are the changes will actually help achieve all this 10 years down the line?
Yeah. So if you think about LGBTQIA, there are like so many, you know, alphabets. Please go, you know, there are enough resources available in the internet for you to really if you just spend like 10 minutes, you can understand what it really means and what it is. You just need the initiative to go and understand, right? Go ahead, do that first, right? When you talk about solutions for LGBT people, it is not easy to give like one solution that fits all of them, right? Because we need to understand what is the problem that they are facing. For most of the LGBT people, lesbian, gay, bisexual people, right? Often it is not that they are denied access to education. They are denied, their ability to live and work or be part of a community and all that. Their biggest problem, the way I understand, is manifestation, right? To show their true self, right? If I'm a lesbian person, I want to be able to get, in a relationship with another woman. And I want to go, if there is a team event where your significant others are invited, I want to be able to bring my girlfriend to this team event, and I want people to deal with me the same way they'll deal with a heterosexual couple, right? So their biggest problem seems to be this bringing the true self to where I am, and sorry, there is some background noise. It's kind of distracting me. So that seems to be the biggest problem. It's not access to education. It's not, those things are not the bigger problems. But when it comes to, when you talk about LGBT people, as long as we kind of, because see, India is not similar to the Western world in a lot of things. Like, people do not have a strong opinion. If you think about what is happening in the US, especially with the conservatives and liberals, conservatives think that homosexuality is against God's wishes. They want to burn homosexuals. The church does not approve of homosexuality. So there is a organizational problem for accepting homosexual LGBT people, and everybody has a very strong opinion either for or against. But India is not like that. At least, let's not talk about the whole Hindutva nonsense that goes on, but at least with respect to the southern states, we are not people with strong opinions. We are just ignorant. We are just, don't talk, kind of don't say about it. It's okay, you're gay, just don't tell me, and we are less opinionated about the whole thing. We just don't understand. The ignorance problem, the understanding problem will go away soon with being a lot of visibility and being a lot of, talking about it. And when people get to learn more, now we have access to information, which is another bigger problem. But per se, we have access to information about everything. So the understanding problem, the ignorance problem will go away in the next 10 years. That's my hope, right? The bigger problem is social isolation, discrimination that transgender people face. Now, that is not an understanding problem. That is not an ignorance problem, because we see them, we know, we see who they are and what they are, and they are visible and they are there, right? That is a social problem. 50 or 60 years ago, there was a similar problem, but in a different context, right? The Dalit community, the lower caste community, has the same issue of isolation, discrimination, not having access to, homes. People would not give rent, give their houses for rent to Dalit people or people of lower caste. No access to education. a Dalit child, father, who was doing a menial job, their children were expected to do the same job, and there is a lot of the social problems that Dalits and people of the lower caste faced. And there was a political solution to that. They did reservation, and they made sure, and they made untouchability a criminal offense. And there was a political, process and thing that happened, because of which right up even now we have all of those issues, but not as much as we had 60 years ago. And it took 60 years for us to come out of this whole caste thing, at least for the most part. At least like the people that I grew up with, the people that I know, but at least are not as staunch as the people like, like our parents or grandparents' generation, right? Because there was political will to go ahead and do that, right? Now, our judicial system and our political system should interfere and be able to do this. In 2014, the Nalsa judgment, the Supreme Court said, see, it is an individual's right to identify with the gender they want to, right? Nobody can force a transgender woman to identify as the third gender just because they can get certain, advantages, social advantages or political advantages or whatever. Nobody can say, I will give you a house only if you identify yourself as a third gender, not a woman, right? Nobody can say that. That is wrong. That is what the Supreme Court says, right? But politicians and people who execute those plans not understand this simple concept. I think last year or something, in the parliament, when Menaka Gandhi was talking about the trafficking bill, like she said something like, men, women, and the others, or something like that. She used the term others for transgender people, and she was rolling her eyes, and which actually received a lot of backlash from the community, and she has apologized after that. We need a political will and execution will to actually deal with these problems. In 2014, when the Supreme Court said that it is up to individuals to decide which gender they want, right? It also said the state and the central governments are supposed to provide reservation for transgender people because of the historic discrimination, isolation, and atrocities that they have faced as a social group or a community, right? Not even a single state government so far has implemented reservations, right? Only when you have reservation, the same thing that worked for the low caste problem. When I work with a lower caste person in Amazon as a peer, right? I see what their capabilities are. I don't care which caste they come from, as long as they're doing their job well, right? And this is probably because that person was a beneficiary of the political things that people put together, the reservation system. I'm a forward community person, but I was kind of against reservation when I was growing up, because I never got scholarship, I never got any concessions because I was a forward community person. But I personally believe for reservation right now, because that was the only thing that helped lower caste people to come out, and I think that's the only thing that can help transgender people to come into mainstream jobs, not just in private corporations, in public corporations. We need to have constituencies that have reservations for transgender people. We need to have political parties to give tickets to transgender people. Unless there is that political and executionary mechanism put in place, we are going to be talking about this even for the next 10, 20 years to come.
I hope that answers your question, Devaney.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. There has been a question on YouTube live comment section. So it is, there are people whose family may not be supportive. How can we help them as a community?
Ma'am, just
again,
before you start the answer, just a second, ma'am. So this is a very unique question, and I'd like to hear the answer from Babu sir, Sheela ma'am, and also Samyukta ma'am. And we'll start with Sheela ma'am.
Sure.
Ma'am, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yes, ma'am. There are people whose families may not be supportive for them. How can we help them as a community?
We may have to organize various programs, and we have to concentrate on various institutions and even NGOs to spread the awareness. Because, and as Samyukta, she was explaining about her parents' attitude. I think if we involve such type of people to spread the awareness, it will have better impact. As a community, I think we have to organize some programs like that. Because awareness is the most important thing. We are unaware. When she was explaining certain things, it is an eye-opening to us also, because we feel in our perspective, but their perspectives are different. So we have to accept, and we have to accept people as they are, with all their strength and as well as their limitations, because that is quite common to everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. Good to hear that. And Samyukta ma'am, what would you propose on this particular topic?
See, if you are a parent, right, and you know your child is different from the others, right? Like what Sheela ma'am said, the biggest thing is concern for your well-being, right? Parent concern is for the well-being of the child, and how will they grow, how will the society deal with them, and all of that, right? That is one of the bigger problems why a parent may not be okay with your child being different, because they think if you don't conform to the notions of the society, this child will have a very hard time in their life, and they want to avoid that. Some people just say it is for their own good that we are telling them don't behave like a girl. Like if there is a boy and they behave like a girl, they say it's for their own good that we are saying, because they are going to have a bad experience later when they grow up like that, right? Those concerns of parents can be alleviated only by examples of people like me, or like Samira that Babu sir was talking about, and other people who have gone on to do better and bigger things in their lives, despite being different, right? We can tell these parents, see, yes, right now the society is like this, but then if you support, the child can become a confident person, and as long as they have the skills, nobody is going to discriminate. Everybody is going to give them opportunities. They are going to grow up like any other person. It doesn't mean just because they are different, they're going to struggle, right? When you allay their fears of how the children will grow, then see, that is one way to deal with, like, examples, and stories like mine and other people can help them get rid of their fear. But there are parents who do not want to accept these children because they think the society will actually blame them, or look at the parents in a negative light. Their social status is going to be affected, their personal, so they have those things. I don't think we can do much, because it is not for their children's life they fear. They fear their social state. They fear what will those four people who we always talk about, they think of them, right? And that, I don't know how to get rid of that, unless we all agree that that we are able to provide dignity and respect to everybody, right? So, like, now having a transgender child may be a bad thing for me now, but then now my parents are being, like, deemed as really these revolutionary and open and awesome parents. So if my parents had regular children, not normal, regular children, right? Maybe they would not have had such, things that people talk about them. They are a different child like me, and then they decided to be accepting and open, and now they have probably a better social, acceptance and status and things that people talk about. So maybe we can tell them, if you're going to be accepting of your children, maybe you will have a better social status than you're having now, right?
That's a wonderful point, ma'am. And Babu sir, I would like to hear on a perspective, since you're an educationalist and you've been running inclusive schools. So I would like to hear from a school perspective, from a teacher's perspective, what can be done towards this particular problem?
Yeah, can you
repeat?
see
You
me
want me to repeat
clearly?
the question,
Yeah.
sir?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I
sir.
got your question.
Okay, sir.
Firstly, let me add a few more points to the previous question you asked, Sheela and Samyukta. Basically, when you have a transphobia parent or a transporter parent, according to the terminologies, whatever you want to call them, you have a problem to deal with. Basically, I strongly believe when anybody, any human being, or when they get married and then they have a child, it's a great moment to have a child. That's part of everybody's life. And as the child grows, you have a tremendous joy as the child grows. And I'm 200% sure no parent, father or mother, would like to lose a child after bringing up the child for about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years, because it's a loss which is going to be hurting the parents, both mother and father, mother more so than the father, but definitely it's going to be hurting every parent. It is a hard decision for the parents. And today in the environment, when I did my research and analysis, I realized a parent having such a thought process of a transphobia or a transporter has only two choices. Either they accept the child, whether they like it or not, and look after the child, or disown the child. These are the only two choices. That is when, as a school, I came up with the third choice for the parent. And why wouldn't they keep the child in the home? Basically because, like Samyukta brought out, the social pressures, the family pressure, the sibling pressure, the neighbors pressure, and all those kind of pressures, which is actually pseudo pressures. It's really not pressures. Like rightly she said, today her parents are very proud of her. It's more of a social status that they are a reforming parent, and that's how every parent should be. And they're more like a icon. In fact, I'm going to request her if I can take a video shoot of her parents, because that will actually take across for a lot of other people who are struggling with such thoughts. So I think basically what we came up with an idea that if children cannot be kept at home, then you have a third option where a school is ready to take responsibility. Now, when I say school is ready to take responsibility for these children, it is not just giving admission to these children, because a school, I understand, is a place of education. It's not a commercial place, or it is not a place where you're into only making money or something like that. It's a place of real education where you want to bring up value-based children for the future as a part of society. And no child desiring to earn for education should be denied admission in any school. You cannot classify children as good children, intelligent children, lots of mark scoring children, and then only give admission. Irrespective of the status of the child must be given admission if the child is coming to school to learn. And our job is to teach them, and teach them whatever you can teach them to the best of your ability and the best of their ability they need to learn. Now, coming down to these, my school personally, I have to create, I'll tell you that firstly, getting them on board took me 6 months. My board members and my teachers and my principal, all of them getting them. First question they asked is, why do you want this? Where is the need for going into this? Who is going to jail all these issues and problems that are going to come across? And then as a trial measure, we brought in, we had a transgender child in our school. And unfortunately, that particular child, because she had already gone out of the school, gone out of home, and then wanted to reform herself, came into the school. We gave her all the facility. but again, she wanted to go away and run away and join the people in the streets. So there were issues, and a lot of problems will arise, but that is part of the journey. But the important thing is that you have to educate all your teachers on treating every children equally, understanding them as they are, and accepting whatever behavior they are coming up with, because that's part of growing up. It's not necessary today. All the adolescents and the teenage children in school are all going to be behaving. We have adequate problems with them too. When a child is in 11th, 12th, and all those things, you have enough problems. Somebody steals, somebody sometimes writes naughty letters to the teacher, somebody even steals question papers and burns them. All these issues will take place, and this is part of growing up. And I don't look at it as anything wrong. Okay, we need to reform the child into making the child understand what is right and what is wrong, and for whatever it takes, right and wrong. Now, coming to the school, there is another issue which involves the children themselves. Now, it took us almost 10 years in my school for the normal children to accept the differently able children to be amalgamated and integrated. Because firstly, the parents, I had a strength of 900 children. The moment I started taking differently able children, almost 600 of them ran away, because the parents said, my children cannot be studying with differently able children. Their IQ will come down. Actually, today my school produces the second best results in CBS. So it has nothing to do with anything. The question is, these children grow up with better values. They grow with empathy and compassion when they see these differently able children. If a child falls, they immediately run to help the child, and that's the way they grow. And now imagine if these children are going to grow up with the gender non-conforming children, and they are going to be understanding what exactly goes in, because the medical education, psychological education will be for them too. They'll also have to understand where these children are from and where they are heading. So once that is understood at the child level, I'm sure later on as a society, it is going to be very easy for them as a father, as a mother, and as a society to accept these people, give them jobs, and respect them for what they are in whichever position they are. So whatever today Samyukta had to fight and come up, then with these kind of kids coming up, the future is definitely going to be a better place for them to live in. And not only the children and the teachers, there's a third category of people in the school. That is the non-teaching staff. They are also equally characters, who have to play a great role, because a bulk of the work is done by the non-teaching staff, like the ayahs, the watchmen, the drivers, the security guys. So these guys have also got to be told to respect and learn and be educated about the whole community. Only then a truly inclusive school can flourish, in the true sense. Thank you.
This is so wonderful.
I just wanted to add the work that Dr. Major Babu is doing is wonderful. It's really, really wonderful, and his vision is wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that.
True, ma'am. It's the work you're doing is very commendable, sir, and we are very happy that we are hearing all about it today. And so before we close the session, I have one last question. We are a group of active medical students who want to create a difference in society. And as a part of this, we take up a lot of activities. We do a lot of trainings. We do capacity building sessions for medical students. And we also work with other organizations towards better health and health problems. So not just upon reproductive health, SIMSA as an organization has 4 different councils, one exclusively for public health. They deal with several contemporary problems. Recently, their work was upon sleep and its effects, the changes with the pandemic, how sleep cycles have been altering, and how it affects on general health. And then we'll be taking up several topics on behalf of SIMSA, and many other, each council takes up their own activity and they address this. So we as an organization want to contribute to a better society of tomorrow in regard to trans people and in regard to every person, towards a better inclusive society. So how do we orient our work so we can create a better impact. And I would like to hear a perspective of how we can also create better doctors and also upon healthcare access. So I would like to start with Samyukta ma'am, and I'd
Yeah.
like to hear
See,
the answer from all the three panelists on this. Yes, ma'am, please.
Sure. As medical students and future doctors, right? I personally believe that you guys have the biggest responsibility and the biggest opportunity to actually shape, the way people look at such things, right? Because at the end of the day, one, this is a physical medical issue. If you think about it, when parents, whether the child is born, or when the child shows different things, and they want to take the child to a psychiatrist, or when you want to transition, you need an endocrinologist, you need a surgeon. So doctors play a crucial role in the complete growing up, in the complete transition of a child as they grow up, right? So, and you also have the responsibility and the opportunity to dispel all of those myths when it comes to how things are and how things should be, and all of that, right? So the first thing that I would say is educate yourself, right? I do know psychiatrists who were working with parents to have children go through these conversion therapies, especially for gay kids or lesbian kids, and dispel, misinform children, especially when it comes to the transgender aspects of things, physical, genetic, biological, and psychiatric, and all of those things, right? So the best thing to start with is educate yourself of how things are. Even if you are an endocrinologist or a surgeon, it is not a bad idea to think through the psychological aspects of what does it mean to be a male or a female, or whatever it is, right? So first thing is to educate yourself. Second, do we have LGBT support groups in every single medical college in India? If not, why? If as South Indian Medical Association, do we have LGBT support or mental health support groups in every single medical college in South India? If not, why? And what can you do to make sure you have such groups, right? Once you have gone through that, for example, I studied in PSG Tech. If PSG Medical College had an LGBT support group, probably it was going to be easier for PSG Tech to actually have an LGBT support group, just because there is an alliance that could actually happen between the medical college and the engineering students, right? So you can extend the scope of your work when it comes to LGBT support, not just within the medical college structure, but extend it to other colleges, engineering colleges, and bigger, engineering colleges, and arts and commerce colleges, and everywhere, and slowly get this into schools eventually. Maybe not in the same structure as an LGBT support group, but simply as guidance counselors, or is there any way you could equip people who want to take up guidance counseling, and kind of equip them with some psychiatric help or stuff like that, so that they can become guidance counselors in schools and colleges and stuff like that. I think there is huge opportunities for you guys to spearhead some of this, because it's much easier when people who are accredited with some kind of social status as being a doctor can come and tell people, hey, this is normal, and we are going to support them independent of what happens.
Thank you, ma'am. What you say is something very true, and I see a possibility that we could do, if not in the colleges, because again, There's a lot of administration that need to be convinced. There's again a medical board that need to be convinced. But maybe as an organization, we could start a central support group where we can have an inclusive approach for any educational organization. And this is something I would put forward to work as soon as the session is over, and we'll make sure this will be done. Sheela,
Sure.
ma'am, I'd like
And
to hear.
if you need any help from, just saying, Vishnu, if you need
Yes,
any
ma'am.
help from people like me or somebody else, please reach out to me if there is anything that I could do to support, maybe financially or, just, conducting these sessions, sensitization programs or something. I'm happy to help with those things.
Definitely, ma'am. We will definitely need your support, because the structure of LGBT support group is something that's going to be very new and challenging for us to start and develop as well. And we will need a lot of inputs from you to it. And we will also try to do a case study upon corporate approach on this. So maybe if there are some things we can adapt, we definitely will. So we'll reach out to you post this session, ma'am. And Sheela, ma'am, I would like to hear from you on this particular topic.
I think she has explained very beautifully. One more point I think I can add. Still, people have a lot of faith in doctors. When doctors say something, common people, they take on face value. But my suggestion is, now most of the doctors are very busy and they are not able to spend much time with the patients. So if you could spend more time with such type of, I think, patient or the person who is coming for support, you have to give some hope. And if you are giving some confidence to them, it is not any alien thing to be dealt with. I think that would be better. So you should find some time to give more information. You should educate them. If you are not able to get such type of opportunity because of your work pressure, you can refer them for those people who are doing such type of counseling or any support. That's what I wish to add.
Very true, ma'am. I totally agree upon this part. And it's not just about inclusive people. Whenever me or my family, we approach a corporate hospital or any hospital per se for a medical reason, we come up with this small dissatisfaction. And hopefully new generation of doctors, upcoming doctors, could fill in this gap better. And we will definitely keep this point in mind. And Babu sir, I'd like to hear from you. Sir? So I guess there's some connection issue with sir. We'll definitely reach out to sir and seek his personal guidance in person. We'll definitely contact sir and take his guidance in person. Sir, are we audible to you now?
Can you see me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we are in.
Yes.
Vishnu, I just wanted to ask you a question. Now you're in your third year of MBBS. Do you have a chapter where they teach you about LGBTQI?
No, sir, we don't.
You don't.
So I would like to mention a small incident in regard to this, sir. So right all through my medical curriculum, we study about genetic disorders. We study about what causes intersex, in different types of disorders. But we were never clearly taught about this until I attended a comprehensive sex education session out of my college. So I think that's a pretty much scenario with many medical colleges.
So I think your curriculum should include this chapter because they are a huge segment of humanity. Now, why I'm saying this is when I gave a talk to the Indian Medical Association in Erode, 85% of them, for them, everything was Greek and Latin. You know, when I talked to the doctors here in Tiruchi, the president of the Trichy Medical Association, again, the same question is, we have never given a thought to any of these. Whenever I see them on the road, I just turn my face. That's about it. Okay. Now, when a child like that comes for treatment, for centuries and for decades, we have only be trying to tell them we'll treat them. So the parent is given hopes that they can be treated either by psychological treatment or by medical treatment. They start giving them all kinds of medicines. Now, it's clear that it is not a curable problem because it's not a disease or a disorder. Okay, so even medical has got a great role to play. Firstly, for understanding what the issue is. Only then the parents can get the confidence and they can be advised correctly. The second thing comes to in medical colleges. Definitely, I am aware in a lot of medical colleges there are associations and there are a lot of things there. But the point at issue is, do we have a separate toilet for them? Do we have a secure place for their stay where they are not dragged or bullied? Because in school the ragging is there, and that is the reason why they run away from school. So in colleges, do their security and their facilities, are they addressed? That's something the student association can take up and ensure that it is done. Definitely you can help all the children studying in your college who are in this particular spectrum are protected, respected, and accepted. That's a great thing you can do about. And the third thing is, when I wanted to do reassigned surgery for one of the transgender child here, throughout Tiruchi, although it's one of the places where there are all kinds of multi-speciality hospitals, right from Apollo downwards to everything, I could not find a single set of doctors who could do the reassigned surgery for the transgender child. So ultimately, I had to take this child to another hospital, get the doctor from Chennai to that hospital, and go through the reassigned surgery. Now, question is, now if we really mean anything, because let me assure you that when I interacted with all these people in the community outside in the streets, almost 70% of them are still in their original gender. They are not gone through the reassigned surgery at all. It's a big thing for them because there is a lot of money involved in spending to do that. So they cannot properly afford, and they feel there is no need for it. So that is another thing that really needs to be done, because the endocrinologists, the plastic surgeons, these people must have this curriculum where they are taught how to do the reassigned surgery if something really needs to be done. And as far as the intersex child is concerned, I feel there has been any number of legal cases where children, before they understand what is going on with them, the surgery is done. The reason is the parents say, I as a parent want a male child. I keep praying to God, to Vishnu or Shiva or whoever, Brahma, that I want a male child, male child, male child. And suddenly when I have an intersex child delivered, the first choice, first opportunity I get is I'll convert that child into a male child, because that is the surgery I put him through, even before the child realizes what exactly the child is. Now, it is happening due to two things. One, the doctors are not giving the right advice. The parents, with their thought process and ambition and everything, and what happens if the child grows and shows feminine characters or feminine inclination or behavioral pattern? The whole child's life is ruined. You already done the surgery before the child knew what the hell was going on with her. You're not even taken the consent of the child. So no such reassigned surgery should be done, whether it is an intersex child or any other child, before the child is 18 years of age. That is important. The last thing is, of course, legal. We must bring in legal rules and regulations that there has to be a detrimental action taken on parents disowning children. Somewhere so that point should come up in legal aspects, so that the law can uphold any parent throwing the child out into the streets, because it's so criminal to lose a child who is 13, 14, 15, 16 and ask the child to get onto the street to survive. It's not just that aspect also should be looked into. These are some thoughts which I had. I thought I'll share with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The problems which you arise are very real and are something that need immediate attention. Thank you so much for bringing this point to light. And I request Sudhiti to take up a vote of thanks for our panelists.
We would firstly like to thank all the panelists for giving SIMSA, Corage and Bleed with Pride this wonderful opportunity to host this discussion. We appreciate that we could address such an important topic to our webinar. I would specifically like to thank our three panelists, Mr. N.I. Babu, Ms. Sheela and Ms. Samyukta for their valuable insights and promptly interacting with the audience. We would also like to extend our sincere appreciation for all the work our panelists are doing in the field of transgender communities' welfare. Sir, for his initiative to start a hostel in order to provide better accommodation and environment. Sheela ma'am, for her work as principal of the Manhasmitra School and various research and workshops in the field of psychology. And finally, Samyukta ma'am for sharing her personal experiences and answering all possible questions. We thank you all with immense gratitude.
Thank you so much.
We can close our session. Again, I convey my heartfelt thanks for all three of the panelists and organizers and all the participants we have today for being a part of this session. So thank you one and all. And by this we can close the session.
Thank you, Vishnu. Doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
You will make a good doctor.
God bless. You, sir.
Thank you, Chetna, and thank you, Janani.
Thank you so much, sir, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all.
Finally, I get to see you, Chetna.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.